I never imagined my nightly coffee ritual would reveal a heartbreaking truth about the lonely CEO. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started like any other Tuesday, dark outside, the smell of rain heavy in the air. I settled into my routine, the familiar creak of the kitchen chair beneath me. Tiny flecks of light danced on the countertop as I brewed my coffee, the sound of boiling water almost comforting. As I stirred in the cream, I noticed its shimmering edge of a letter half hidden under the pile of receipts. My heart raced. Who writes letters these days? Curiosity pulled me closer. The ink looked deep and bold. I had to know. I unfolded it gently, aware that this simple act could shatter my clean slice of normalcy. The words spilled out, revealing a vulnerability that pierced through me. The CEO I'd thought was untouchable, a titan in steel and glass, was pouring out her heart on paper. She spoke of loneliness and despair. The isolation clung to each line, wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. Thoughts swirled in my mind, memories of meetings where she sparkled with confidence and spoke with authority. Yet here she was, revealing the cracks in her armor. My fingers trembled, and I could feel the heat rising from the coffee cup, a stark contrast to the cold despair radiating from the letter. I looked out the window, the world blurred by droplets cascading down the glass. Was this CEO, this powerhouse, really as alone as she sounded? I couldn't shake off the feeling of urgency. I had to learn more. Who had she confided in? Was she hiding this pain from everyone, including me? Her plight echoed in my heart, a pulse of empathy that pushed me to dig deeper. The air around me thickened, a storm brewing both outside and within. Suddenly, I realized what would happen if I uncovered more. Would I unearth secrets that could destroy her, or perhaps, save her? The pressure in my chest mounted me, mind raced. This was more than a letter, it felt like an invitation into an unseen world of shadows and light. As I stood frozen with questions swirling in my mind, the silence felt heavy, pregnant with possibility. Then, a loud thud snapped me back to realisha kettle boiling over on the stove. I rushed to turn it off, but I couldn't shake the weight of that letter from my thoughts. I clutched the paper in my hand like a lifeline, its edges wrinkled from my grip. Who knew how many others felt this way? Plenty, I would guess. I stood there, coffee forgotten, heart racing with the weight of an unasked question. Was I ready to unveil the truth, or cover it up for her protection? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed felt like an unraveling tapestry, each thread pulling at the fabric of my resolve. I placed the letter back on the countertop, allowing it to join the clutter of everyday life, but its absence weighed heavily on my mind. I carried its message like an unsecret I couldn't share, each interaction with the CEO dipping in intensity. Her laughter felt distorted, muffled by an invisible barrier. When our paths crossed at the office, I saw her in a different light. The boardroom where she commanded respect morphed into a fragile cage, the walls closing in rather than protecting her. With every meeting, I searched for signs: an unguarded smile, an absent-minded glance, anything that hinted at the person behind the polished exterior. Yet, as she spoke, her voice was steady, unwavering, a stark contrast to the raw emotions etched in that letter. It was humbling and disheartening, a performance in a theater where I longed for authenticity. One evening, while waiting for a client meeting to wrap up, I decided to take a moment for myself. The office was quieter now, echoes of chatter faded as the light dimmed. I stepped outside, seeking the cool air that tinged the day's heat. A small park nearby offered solace, familiar faces filled the benches, but I felt miles away. I sat alone, the sounds of laughter weaving through the rustling leaves, and for a moment, I wished to be part of that joyful chorus. Lost in my thoughts, I spotted Mrs. Lang, an elderly woman who lived a few blocks away, approaching with her tiny dog. Every Friday she brought fresh flowers from her garden to the office, a small kindness that always brightened the week. Today, however, her expression was different. Sorrow hung like a cloud above her. I waved, and she shuffled over, the little dog wagging its tail vigorously. "Hi there, dear," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Mind if I join you?" "Of course not." "It's lovely to see you," I replied, though I sensed unease lurking behind her smile. "Things have been tough lately," she confessed, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It's silly, really, sometimes, just knowing someone else is out here brings a bit of comfort." In that moment, sitting on the park bench with her, I felt a shared understanding of burden without the need for words. I listened as she recounted her struggles, her son's recent departure for college, the silence that filled her home afterward. There it was again, loneliness, a cruel mirror reflecting the CEO's pain and my own quiet unraveling. "I think we all need kindness," I said softly, the weight of truth falling between us. "Even those who appear to be brave and strong." Mrs. Lang reached out and squeezed my hand, surprising me with her warmth. "It takes a brave heart to show empathy," she said, a gentle encouragement floating in the air like a thread pulling us closer despite our struggles. I returned to the office with the weight of the letter heavy in my pocket but buoyed by this unexpected connection. Maybe sharing her truth wouldn't destroy the CEO, perhaps it would lighten her load. But should I pry into her personal life further? The thought unsettled me. Was I to unleash a floodgate when all I desired was to offer hope? Late that night, the darkness wrapped around me, making every question seem louder than the last. I moved through the motions of brushing my teeth and combing my hair, but my reflection in the mirror barely registered. My thoughts turned to the letter again, longing to unfold each line and dive deeper into the heart of the lonely CEO. Suddenly, my phone buzzed, and a message flashed on the screen. It was from an unknown number. "We need to talk. I have information about her past." Panic surged through me, a pulse quickening my blood. Who were they? What could they possibly know? The letter that had once solely belonged to me was now part of a larger mystery. With my heart hammering against my chest, I faced a choice. I could chase the truth, risking everything, or I could stop now and protect her secret at all costs. My hand trembled, hovering over the screen. The storm within grew fiercer, a battle of hope and fear, and with a deep breath, I pressed reply, my heart sinking toward uncertainty. The following days were a whirlwind of anticipation and trepidation. Each tick of the clock felt distorted, stretching seconds into eternities, as I waited for a response from the unknown number. I returned to work with a danger-laced fervor, my mind an entangled web of thoughts and emotions. The weight of my decision to engage with whoever had reached out gnawed at me like an insatiable hunger. I found myself eyeing the CEO from across the room in the board meetings, searching for a flicker of vulnerability hidden in her sleek, polished demeanor. Was this someone who could bear the weight of her truth? I recalled Mrs. Lang, the shared loneliness we discovered amidst sprigs of understanding, and what if that same thread could connect me to the CEO? It was dangerous to think that a simple act of kindness could incite something beautiful, but the prospect of unraveling her struggle filled me with wild hope. As I sat down for my habitual coffee break, the steam rising from the cup filled my senses with warmth and invitation to pause. I whipped out my phone, contemplating canceling the daylight encounter with fate. Just then, a chat notification pinged. My heart leapt as I swiped to reveal the message. The unknown number had replied, beckoning me into a world I might not be prepared to enter. "Meet me at Esposito's Cafe, 7 p.m. I can explain everything." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet, I found myself at Esposito's, a small, intimate cafe that buzzed softly with life. The air was fragrant with the scent of fresh pastries and brewed coffee. I slid into a booth, nerves coiling in my gut as I stole glances at the door, waiting for the messenger to arrive. Minutes felt like hours, and just when I considered bolting, a figure stepped in, their outline softened by the warm ambience. My breath hitched. A woman, familiar yet unexpected, Lucy's friend, Sophia, appeared before me. I had met her once at an office event, a radiant spirit, though her eyes now carried shadows. "Thank you for coming," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the calm facade she attempted to project. "I wanted to talk to you about Lucy, about her past. There are layers to her that most people don't know." My heart pounded as I leaned in. "What do you mean? What's wrong with her?" Sophia hesitated, her gaze drifting toward the window. Outside, the last glimmers of daylight receded into night. "She's been carrying a burden, one that her pride won't let her share. I don't think anyone sees her pain. She wears a mask, but the reality is, she is, or was, deeply hurt by something that happened years ago." I found myself gripping the table's edge, both anxious and enthralled by the secrets waiting to unfurl. "What happened?" Sophia inhaled slowly, searching for the right words. "When she first started as a junior executive, she had a serious relationship, one that took a drastic turn. He left her without warning, and she lost everything in her eyes, her value, her worth. She has built this empire to drown out her sorrow, but it's only fueled her isolation. I see her, she's lost in that cage you mentioned." The heaviness of her words settled around me, vivid and rich with empathy. Suddenly, the laughter I had always heard from the CEO in meetings morphed from beauty into shadows, remnants of an armor forged from pain. There was so much more beneath the surface. "I think she needs someone to remind her of her worth, to show her that it's okay to be vulnerable," Sophia said, her eyes pleading. "But she won't let anyone close enough. She's afraid of losing again. I fear, this might consume her." The depths of my own struggle emerged as I listened to Sophia. It was comforting and terrifying, hearing my own fears echoed back at me through her words. "I don't know how to approach her," I admitted, vulnerability slipping through the cracks as I revealed a part of my own soul. "What if I push too hard and she shuts down? What if my desire to help hurts her more?" Sophia nodded. "It's a risk, but sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to reach out in love, even if it means we may fall short." As the clock ticked on, I absorbed her words, my resolve firming up with each passing minute. The experience reminded me of sitting with Mrs. Lang, sharing silent burdens amidst simple gestures of empathy. Yet above it all lingered my own truth, though uncertainty I faced alongside the CEO's pain. And the silence that followed, the gentle hum of the cafe enveloped us. I could either step onto a path that might forge deeper connections or retreat back to the safety of anonymity, keeping my heart protected but isolated. I decided it wouldn't be a simple act of kindness, it would require courage. My heart raced with the weight of what this meant, but before I could formulate my next thought, the door swung open again. Lucy herself stepped in. She stopped short, her eyes scanning the room until they locked with mine. The world shrank, leaving just us two, secrets teetering on the verge of revelation. Would she walk away, or would this be the moment when I finally unspooled the truth behind the mask? My mind raced as I studied her expression, uncertainty mingling with hope. The possibility of connection hung in the air like a delicate thread, waiting to be grasped or unravel. The buzz of conversation faded into a hushed silence, and the atmosphere within Esposito's changed. I caught a glimpse of Lucy's powerful presence, even as her shoulders slumped slightly, telling a story of its own. She took hesitant steps forward, her brow furrowed, as if she carried the weight of unspoken fears on her back. Sophia whispered, "You have to say something. Now." I barely heard her. My heart raced, the blood pounding in my ears. The room blurred as my entire focus narrowed in on Lucy, the woman I had admired and respected, now a reflection of everything I yearned to understand. She appeared vulnerable, yet a fortress surrounded her, an impenetrable wall made up of years of hurt, embedded in her every breath. "Lucy," I finally managed to say, my voice softer than I intended, barely above a whisper. The warmth of her name on my lips felt monumental yet fragile, like glass balancing on the edge of collapse. Her gaze flickered as she caught the movement towards our table, blue eyes searching for understanding. Confusion rippled across her features when she noticed Sophia first, then me. For a moment, the edges of her confidence frayed, and I thought she might step back, turn on her heel, and stride out as if nothing had happened. But she didn't. Instead, with an imperceptible breath, she approached. "What are you doing here?" Her voice trembled ever so slightly, attempting to anchor the uncertainty that roiled around us. I didn't know you'd be here," I stammered, though a part of me believed that this moment was woven into fate's complex tapestry. "Sophia and I were just talking about how we can help you." A line flickered between her brows, the coating of emotions, skepticism mingling with intrigue painted her expression. "Help me? You don't even know me." "You're wrong," I replied, gathering the scraps of courage clinging to the corners of my heart. "I think I'm starting to understand you more than you realize. We see so much pain masked behind that strength, Lucy. And I want to help you carry it." Her lips parted, yet no words escaped. Silence stretched, charged with unsaid confessions and fragile hopes. Hope filled with uncertainty. Just as I feared she might turn away, she took a seat across from me. Her fingers trembled as she traced the rim of her coffee cup, a nervous gesture that belied her cultivated poise. "Why do you care?" she finally asked, eyes searching mine for authenticity, for the hidden agenda she must have suspected was lurking. "People in this city never care until they want something in return." "I want nothing but to help you find yourself again," I said, surprising even myself with the raw honesty that flowed from my heart. "To see you behind the walls you've built." Lucy's gaze bore into mine with an intensity that left me breathless as the weight of her defenses cracked ever so slightly. "You think it's that simple? That I can just open up? I've lost everything I loved. How do I even begin to trust again?" The question slotted into my heart like a missing key. I wanted to wrap my arms around her, to shield her from the world's cruelties, to assure her she didn't have to face this alone. But I also understood why she hesitated. Wounds so deep require more than hope. "Maybe we start by sharing. Tell me about your pain," I urged gently, my heart racing. "I want to hear your story." A storm brewed within her, the flicker of doubt fading as she exhaled deeply, wrestling with her own internal conflicts. Just then, the bell of the cafe jingled, announcing a new customer walking in. Its sound sliced through the air, and Lucy's focus shifted. I watched as the warmth in her expression flickered into cold apprehension. "Not here," she said abruptly, her voice dropping to a low murmur, as if the very act of sharing her truth was too dangerous to do amidst strangers. "I can't talk about this in public." Disappointment pooled within me, yet I couldn't force her. Trust is a fragile thing. Still, her vulnerability ignited a spark within me. "Then where?" I pressed. "We can go somewhere privatetto, a place that feels safe." Lucy's gaze darted around, her instincts alert, as if weighing my intent against her need for protection. Finally, she nodded, albeit reluctantly. "I'll need a minute. Just give me a moment." She stood abruptly, glancing over her shoulder before heading toward the washroom, leaving me wrestling with my own turmoil. Sophia's questioning look shot across the table, a blend of concern and encouragement. "What now?" she asked softly, folding her hands in front of her. "Now I wait," I whispered back, watching Lucy disappear behind the cafe door. Only the hum of muffled conversations remained, and ahead loomed an unintended potential for heartbreak. A minute stretched to eternity before Lucy returned. She looked different after those few moments, a flicker of resoluteness in her eyes as if hidden courage was stoked by a few simple breaths. But just as I began to feel relief at her return, her phone buzzed insistently on the table. Glancing down, the warmth in her expression evaporated, replaced by a hardened mask. I could see it ripple through her, an electric current of fear merging with urgency. "I need to take this," she said briskly, her voice clipped. "Have to," she repeated. Her usually commanding voice turned uncertain as she stepped away from the table. As I watched her walk towards the hallway, I felt the air between us grow heavy with unanswered questions. The growth of confusion spiraled within me, and just as I looked down at her phone lying untouched, an unexpected prompt screen lit up with words that halted my breath. Incoming call from Ryan. Blocked NUMBR. Everything within me stilled in that moment, a sudden fear unfurling in my chest like a dark flower blooming. Ryan. That name echoed with an unsettling familiarity. Lucy's past rushed forward, whispering truths that made my heart race. What had I stumbled upon? The cafe buzzed around me, indifferent to the monumental weight of the discovery I had, waves crashing against my heart as I realized this was only the beginning. The journey I'd embarked on could lead to unforeseen turmoil, and I sat at the precipice of uncovering a truth that would change everything. The hours that followed were a blur of muted conversations and faint laughter that felt worlds away from the heart of the revelation I'd stumbled upon. I stared at Lucy's phone, the screen pulsating with the name that had appeared like a harbinger of chaos. The heartbeat of the cafe pulsed around me, but I was caught in a torrent of thoughts, shackled by the uncertainty of Lucy's connection to a name that bore its own weight of secrets. As the last remnants of light dimmed against the glass walls, the warmth of the cafe felt suffocating. Each clink of a coffee cup echoed like a distant reminder of a life untouched by the gravity of pain that Lucy carried. I could still hear her voice, filled with vulnerability. How do I even begin to trust again? And I felt a sense of urgency towing the line of anxiety. The hollow space at our table echoed her absence more painfully with each passing moment. I glanced toward the entrance, half expecting Lucy to walk back in, bearing the courage of our shared space, ready to reveal the depths of her struggles. But as time slipped through my fingers, I knew that my heart was pushing against the dam of self-preservation I'd built around it, and then, the bright portal of the cafe swung open, and in strode a figure that simultaneously ignited my instincts and chilled me to my core. Ryan. He entered with a confident stride, scanning the room, a predator with an unsettling familiarity. My gut twisted with dread. He wasn't just a name connected to Lucy, he was an intruder into our moment. Panic pulsed through me. I ducked behind a decorative plant, hoping to remain inconspicuous while I processed the irony of my hiding spot. The walls that had once felt filled with promise were now snapshots of betrayal. I needed to protect her. I needed to reach Lucy before he could. Ryan's gaze flicked around the cafe, and I held my breath, desperate for Lucy to return. Just moments before I could fully grasp the enormity of confronting him, Lucy emerged from the hallway, a shadow of uncertainty wrapping around her shoulders. Our eyes met, and I gestured subtly toward Ryan, but all I saw was confusion clouding her features. Lucy. I called out cautiously, my voice strained. She froze, and the mask she wore frayed at the edges. So many words hung unspoken between us, each one saturated with fear and urgency. Ryan, sensing the tension shift in the air, turned toward her, swiftly shifting his demeanor from casual to predatory, smoothing out the veneer of charm he wore like armor. Lucy, there you are. I've been looking for you. His tone dripped with an unsettling familiarity, and I felt the weight of uncertainty tip precariously. Lucy's expression darkened, the flickers of vulnerability and resolution mixing into a storm of conflict. What do you want, Ryan? She replied, the steel in her voice rattling against the tremor beneath. Just wanted to see how you've been holding up, he said, stepping closer, his eyes gleaming like he held some secret of terrible knowledge. In that moment, the cafe felt more like a cage than a place of refuge. Conversations dulled, voices dimming as an invisible barrier formed around the three of us. I could see the tension rising in Lucy's shoulders, her heart visibly wrestling between safety and the past she was now faced with. Lucy, I think I started, stepping forward but cut short by her gaze. She was fighting something deep within her, a tempest raging between the urge to stand strong and the desire to retreat. Ryan's smile faltered as he slipped into her personal space, invading her light. Lucy, I'm here to help. You need to let me know, she cut him off, her voice firm yet wavering. I don't need your help, not now, not ever. It was a declaration that held both fear and defiance, layers of anguish tangled at its core. My heart swelled with hope, yet the fleeting moment of bravery was soon eclipsed as Ryan chuckled, low and mocking, as if her pain was a well-worn joke. Help? He echoed, a mirthless smile on his lips. You think you can do this alone? Your world is crumbling, and you're too proud to admit it. You're not as strong as you think, Lucy. The walls around me felt as if they were closing in, my own breath caught in my throat. I wanted to shout that strength alone didn't come from a predetermined path, that it was in the struggle, in the way Lucy fought back against broader tides. But it was that very struggle against Ryan's toxicity that I feared might tear her apart in this moment, with an intensity that was both desperate and propelled by the fear that clutched at me. I sought her gaze, hoping she could sense my unwavering support. Lucy. We can leave right now, I urged, my voice slicing through the stars of tension gathering between them, but she hesitated, and in that moment, uncertainty flickered before her, an agonizing tautness held in the air. Ryan's piercing gaze broke the unsteady silence, and he leaned forward, his face inches from hers, a dark undertone coloring his words. You think they want you, but all they see are the scars. You're the one who needs me, Lucy. My heart pounded violently as fear coiled around me, threatening to yank me away from this moment as I realized the profound hold Ryan held over her. I had seen pain, yet the truth of Ryan's venom struck with a relentless depth I hadn't anticipated. Lucy, I pushed through the terror, you don't have to listen to him. But just as I spoke, the phone in her pocket vibrated with an incoming message, a sharp notification cutting through the tension. Lucy looked down, her eyes narrowing as her expression transformed, confusion darting across her features. She pulled out her phone, and without thinking, I stepped closer, wanting to shield her from whatever secret lurked in the message. With a deep breath, she opened it, her face paling as if confronted with specters of the past. The color drained from her cheeks, and I felt the room swirl as if the ground had been pulled from beneath us. What's wrong? I asked anxiously, my chest tightening. She turned back to Ryan, her breath catching. You sent this? His smirk faded as realization dawned on him. But before he could respond, the cafe door swung open with a reverberation that seemed to shake the foundations of our confrontation, and my heart sank. Coming in, surrounded by an air of authority and purpose, walked two men in dark suits. The world felt like it was closing in as they emerged through whispers, the light casting shadows over Ryan's face, now marred with growing anxiety. Suddenly, the power shifted. I sensed something pivotal was about to occur. Lucy Caldwell? One of the men called, his voice booming. And in that second, the reality of how deep the waters ran settled around me like a suffocating fog. I watched Lucy's face morph, the conflict from moments before crumbling under the weight of their arrival. The past was no longer just a whisper, it was here, tangible, ready to stake its claim as I stood on the precipice of an unanticipated storm. The atmosphere in the cafe shifted dramatically as the men approached, the faint chime of the bell above the door swallowed by their unyielding presence. Everything felt magnified. Lucy's heartbeat echoed in my ears, the scent of fresh coffee mingled with the tense air, and the distant laughter of patrons faded into a low, ominous hum. Lucy Caldwell, the taller man repeated, his voice smooth yet commanding, as if speaking her name might summon ghosts from the depths. My heart raced, recognition sparking in Heather's eyes, pupils dilating with a rush of energy and dread. I instinctively moved beside her, a protective instinct surging through me as I took in the two suited figures, their demeanor carrying an air of authority that set my nerves ablaze. What's going on? Lucy's voice trembled, the defiance just moments before cracking under the weight of confusion. She looked from me to Ryan, whose face had shifted from amusement to a grimacia mask slipping as the stakes of this unexpected confrontation rose. We need to talk, the shorter man pressed, his tone no nonsense. It's about your father. A chill ran down my spine, the mention of her father cast a shadow over the moment. Lucy flinched, her gaze locking on the man as if head struck her across the face. She hesitated, emotions unsettlingly visible as her defenses crumbled like autumn leaves caught in the wind. Ryan attempted to regain his footing, like a boxer stumbling back to his corner after a hard hit. What do you mean? There's nothing to talk about. His voice wavered, the bravado fading as Lucy's resolve faded. Please, Lucy, the taller man pressed, stepping closer. This is serious. We didn't come here to cause trouble. His sincerity rippled through, yet every word felt like a nail hammering down the trap that was closing around her. Lucy's eyes darted from him to Ryan's at an almost frantic pace. "What have you done?" she whispered, barely audible, as if speaking her fears would make them real. The tension in the air was thick with unspoken truths. I could see the gears of Lucy's mind clicking into place, fragments of her reality colliding with the men's presence, assembling pieces of a puzzle she had long left forgotten. I leaned closer, whispering, "Lucy, whatever this is, you can handle it. I'm right here." Her gaze flickered toward me, hanging between misplaced trust and all-consuming fear. But before she could respond, Ryan stepped forward, a new desperation taking root within him. "What do you want with her? You can't just waltz in here and talk about her father like he's a piece of information you can sell." The urgency in his voice overshadowed the pleading desperation in Lucy's. But while Ryan fought to reclaim control, the men held firm, their expressions a mixture of patience and understanding, as if they had encountered 1,000 tangled stories before. With an intensity that rattled through the cafe, I turned to Lucy, desperation mingling with an unwavering love. "You don't have to face this alone. Lean on me. Whatever it is, I'm here." The revelation seemed to loom larger as Lucy's expression shifted. Hurt and fear coalesced as she straightened, steeling herself against the whirlwind of anxiety and hurt that had gripped her. "I don't understand. Why are you here? What could possibly matter so much?" The men exchanged glances before the shorter one squared his shoulders, leaning in slightly. "Miss Caldwell, your father left behind some complications. Financial troubles that require urgent attention. We believe you're in danger." His words hung heavy in the air like an unwelcome guest. Danger. The word cracked open something within Lucy, a flicker of the fire I had seen in her before, the one that fought against the surging tide of despair. "What do you mean danger?" Her voice was steadier now, emboldened by something deeper than fear, a hardness of spirit that began to shine through. The taller man extended a folder, a thin dossier filled with documents I couldn't see. "People are looking for you. People connected to your father's dealings. We want to help you. Your father may have left you more." "Then you know that." I watched as Lucy hesitated again, the weight of the past visibly tugging at her. After all that she had faced, the struggle etched into the lines of her face, her next words held immense power. "And what if I don't want your help?" "We understand the mistrust," the taller man replied calmly, "but we can't abide by silence any longer. Your father's choices are not your own, but they may threaten your life just the same." Lucy stepped back, her mind spinning through the reality of her father's legacy, shadows darting behind her eyes. I wanted to reach out, to anchor her to this world and shield her from the ghosts trying to drag her down. "You're strong, Lucy. You've dealt with so much. You can choose how to fight back whatever comes next. I'll stand by you." "But can you?" The uncertainty in her voice struck me like a physical blow. "What if this is too much? What if I fall apart again?" Before I could respond, Ryan broke in, bitterness spilling from him like a shattered glass. "You think they care about you? Your father's debts and the people he created enemies with, they won't go away just because they whistle a pretty tune." The tension hung threaded through my heart as I scanned the room, urgently searching for a way to pull Lucy from this vortex of chaos. The cafe's walls felt like they were closing in around us, the hum of the world outside muted as the dialogues withdrew from comfort, swirling back into a storm of uncertainty. "Lucy," I said softly, desperate to tether her to something, anything, when everything felt like it could go wrong at any moment. "You've been stronger than you know. Well, figure this out, together." A flicker of hope ignited within her, but then it settled into something else, doubt, uncertainty returning in waves as her father's shadow loomed larger. She stepped forward, heart racing, facing the two men, her voice trembling yet laced with resolve. "You have something to tell me. Something I need to know." But before they could respond, the cafe door swung wide open again, this time revealing another figure cloaked in shadow, a woman with a familiar countenance. My breath caught. The world tipped at the sight of her, and time froze. I could hardly believe the coincidence. "Lucy, we need to talk now." This woman was no stranger but someone from Lucy's past, a thread woven deep into the fabric of her life. A sudden twist, another upheaval, a revelation that echoed through me like the pealing of a distant bell. As her presence cut through the tangled fabric of the moment, I felt the ground shift beneath us again, and I realized we were standing on the precipice of more than just secrets. We were about to plunge into uncharted territory, where clarity and chaos danced dangerously close, waiting for hope to either fold or unfold, yet the outcome, frighteningly uncertain, threatened to rip the very ground we stood upon. The atmosphere was thick with overlapping emotions as the woman stepped into the café, her silhouette dimly lit by the golden glow of the overhead lights. With her sharp features and striking resemblance to Lucy, it was as if the air itself had shifted to accommodate a ghost from the past. My heart raced, both for Lucy and the impending storm of revelations that threatened to engulf us all. "Marissa," Lucy whispered, the name hanging in the air like a prayer and a curse. "What are you doing here?" I could see the war of emotions battling within Lucy, furious confusion, a longing for answers, and hesitance born from fear. Marissa's presence reverberated through Lucy's heartstrings, tugging at them unrelentingly as memories unspooled in her mind. "Your father sent me," Marissa replied, her voice steady yet fragile, as if walking on a tightrope strung high above an abyss. "I know everything, Lucy. He wanted you to have the truth before things got complicated." "Complicated?" Ryan hissed, stepping forward defensively, eyes narrowing as he shifted beside Lucy. "How much more complicated can this get? She's already sitting on a time bomb of secrets." "Careful," the shorter man warned, his gaze darting to Ryan with an air of authority. "This doesn't just concern your normal life anymore. It's bigger than all of us now." Lucy's fingers trembled as she brushed them against the edge of the table, a palpable tension crackling through the air. "What truth, Marissa?" she pressed, her eyes locked onto the newcomer, taking in every detail of this woman who seemed to carry a key to a door long bolted shut. "What did my father want me to know?" Marissa sighed, inhaling deeply as though bracing for a tremor beneath her feet. Her gaze softened, revealing reservoirs of compassion alongside the burden she bore. "Your father wasn't just in debt. He was in deeper than anyone realized. He was involved in things that put him, and you, at risk." The urgency in her voice forced a tremor from Lucy's heart, fracturing the dam of composure she had painstakingly held together. "Involved in what? Is that why those men are here? Because they come to collect a debt?" Her words grew fierce, an ember igniting raw determination and fear. "Yes," Marissa replied, her expression grave. "But it's more intricate. Those men, they're part of a larger organization, one with shadows stretching beyond what we see, and they won't stop until they find what they're looking for." "What do they want?" The tremor in Lucy's voice had turned into something stronger, a challenge underlying the question. Marissa's silence spoke volumes, and I could sense Lucy's fears bubbling just below the surface, the thoughts of loss and betrayal that had followed her like shadows. "You still haven't answered me. What did my father do?" "Lucy, your father," Marissa's voice faltered, weighed down by the burden of unfinished truths. "He was part of a network, one that dealt in matters both legal and questionable. Thereafter, what he took with him before he died, information, assets, something powerful enough to threaten their existence." That I could feel the tension rising, threading through our small circle of chaos. Thoughts swirled in Lucy's mind, memories cascading like a waterfall, doubts mixing with a newfound determination as she wrestled with the magnitude of her father's secret life. "What do I have to do with any of this? I want no part of this." Her rejection resonated deeply with the rest of us, the tension so thick it was almost suffocating. The two men exchanged a fleeting glance, their patience waning as the stakes escalated. "Too late, Miss Caldwell. You're at the center of it whether you accept it or not." Lucy turned slowly to me, her heart laid bare in her expressive gaze. "But how can I trust any of you? You're all just a part of this tangled web," she said, her voice crackling with vulnerability. "I couldn't even save myself from my own father's past." In that moment, Ryan's bitterness softened, the fire in his eyes dimmed by a shared understanding of her fear. "Lucy, I know it feels overwhelming, but you're not alone in this. We're here to help, at least give you a chance to choose where this goes." "Help?" Lucy's voice cracked, her skepticism hanging like a weight on her shoulders. What do you know about my life? About what I'm capable of, Lucy? We know, Marissa said gently, stepping closer, that you are far more than anyone acknowledges. Your father knew this. That's why he sent Mayhay wanted you to be prepared, to guard yourself against the storm that's rolling in. As the words settled between us, I could see something shift in Lucy, a mix of anger and resolve. Beneath the fear, there lay a glimmer of strength that stirred to life again. What if I refused to be prepared? The taller man nodded solemnly, a flicker of acceptance dancing in his gaze. Then you become a target that puts you and everyone you care for in danger. This is your choice, Lucy. But know this, we will not abandon you. As the room swirled with looming danger and uncertainty, I reached out, brushing my fingers against hers, trying to anchor her to the promise of safety I intended to uphold. Then, the cafe's door burst open once more, panic radiating from the figure who rushed through. Look out! They're coming! A surge of chaos replaced the fragile calm we had fought to establish, and I felt my heart plummet as fear gripped the air around us. My instincts screamed for me to protect Lucy, and in that fleeting moment, uncertainty morphed into stark reality. I wasn't sure if we would escape this unscathed, and time was slipping through our fingers like grains of sand, threatening to engulf us all. The air in the cafe writhed with palpable tension as the newcomer's cry sent a ripple of panic through the clustered group. Lucy's face drained of color, her eyes wide with fear. As the charged atmosphere intensified, it struck me how swiftly the world had morphed into a dark labyrinth. They're coming for me, she whispered, barely audible, already teetering on the precipice of despair. Not if we get out of here quickly, Ryan said, his voice steady as he grabbed Lucy's hand. Follow me. We'll find a way out through the back. Marissa, however, hesitated, her gaze fixed toward the entrance. No, we can't split up. We need to stick together. The tall man, looking every bit the mercenary, took charge of the situation. Marissa, they know where you are. If they wanted you to be safe, we'd all be out of here already. There's no time to think. Just then, the cafe's door swung open wide again, revealing a pair of men clad in dark suits, their eyes scanning the crowd like predatory hawks. I felt the hair on my arms stand at attention. The sight of them ignited a deep-seated instinct in me, a desperate need to shield Lucy from harm. Lucy, we can't stay here, not now. I urged. She cast a fleeting glance back at Marissa and the two men, her heart caught between past loyalties and present survival. But what about the truth? Truth can wait. Ryan replied angrily, the urgency of the moment sharpening our urgency. Your life is at stake. With the shadows of danger lurking closer, Lucy's shoulders slumped, her fierce resolve momentarily wavering under the weight of unbearable choices. Yet, even within her vulnerability, something shifted in her gaze, the flicker of defiance that had ignited before re-emerged. Let's go. She commanded, her voice steadier than before, reminding me of her innate strength. We barreled toward the exit, crossing the threshold into the cold night air, adrenaline surging through my veins as if I had become part of a greater struggle for survival. Drawing deeper breaths, I led the way, fixing my eyes on the alley that carved away from the cafe's facade. Down there. I pointed to a narrow street sprawling away from the entrance, a potential gateway to safety, but as we rushed toward it, I could see movement from the corner of my eye. Two figures surged forward, quickening their pace. Hurry! I shouted as dread clawed at my insides, each heartbeat a countdown. Ryan turned back, the ferocity of protection etched across his face. Move fast. We were almost at the alley when I felt a tug on my wrist. It was Lucy, pulling me closer. Wait. She said, urgency coloring her voice. What if they're not just after me? What if they want you too? Marissa's expression flickered with realization, the color draining from her face. That's why your father sent me, Lucy. He wanted to protect you, but if we don't act now, another layer of truth might drown everything. But we had no time to dissect her words. Gunshots echoed through the air, ricocheting through my skin like electric shocks. Go! Go! Ryan yelled, pushing Lucy and me forward, adrenaline transforming our gangly limbs into whirring engines of escape. With shadows racing behind us, I could feel the fierce pull of the unknown tightening around us. Just as we slipped into the darkness of the alley, a staggering roar erupted above the concrete walls. The men chasing us were closing in. They wouldn't relent. Turn here, I shouted, darting right to evade them. We skidded around a corner, panting tautly as we ducked behind a pile of crates. The sounds of the world grew distant, the chaos trapped in a bubble of uncertainty as I peeked around the edge to gauge our pursuers. My heart sank further as I realized we were cornered. Several more men had stationed themselves, blocking our path out. Why are they doing this? Lucy cried, her voice trembling under pressure, eyes flickering between raw determination and fear. That I swallowed hard, grappling with the weight of uncertainty that loomed. Because of your father, Lucy. Because the truth is more dangerous than we imagined. Questions tugged at her, snippets of lost memories entwined with shadows of betrayal weaving together in her mind, forming a tapestry the past had left behind. But what is the truth? Suddenly, a glimmer of hope pierced through the darkness. Marissa, her expression fierce and determined, stepped forward with unexpected kindness. Thereafter something he took before he did a ledger, documents something bigger than we realize. But I know how to stop them. Then, with a clarity that cut through the chaos surrounding us, she reached into her coat pocket and revealed a flashing device. This can track their movements. It might give us the edge we need. The weight of her revelation was monumental, but before the realization could sink in, a noise interrupted the sound of footsteps heading toward us. Go, Lucy. I thrust her back, shielding her with my body just as the first man rounded the corner. Get back, I cried, adrenaline coursing through me, propelling me forward, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm. And just as I prepared to confront the sprawl of danger that loomed, a shockwave of reality pierced through the night's fog. Marissa shouted, Lucy, remember the garden. Use what you learned. Before I could process her words, an explosion rattled the ground, sending dust and debris spiraling into the air, disrupting our positions to carving new questions into the chaos. Suddenly, the world twisted in a kaleidoscope of uncertainty. As the dust settled and shadows danced in the corners of my vision, a single thought consumed me. Was there still a way to protect Lucy from the truth her father buried, or had his secrets come to claim her once and for all? With the facade of safety shattered, I held my breath, bracing for what was to come as hope teetered on the edge of despair. The night air was thick with tension, and the acrid scent of smoke mingled with fear as we huddled behind the crates, listening to the echoing footsteps of our pursuers. The explosion still reverberated in my ears, a cruel reminder that the world we once knew had splintered into chaos. I could feel Lucy's trembling form pressed against my side, warmth mingling with the chill of uncertainty as we held our breath, waiting for whatever came next. Stay close, I whispered fiercely, glancing at Marissa. Her recent revelation hung like a specter in the air, the cryptic urgency of her message compelling me to focus on what came next. The garden. My mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of what I knew about Lucy's father. There had been whispers, mostly hushed, of a secret that had taken to his grave, a ledger that could unravel everything. If only I could understand. The sound of rustling drew my attention back. Two men dressed in dark suits came into view, their expressions harsh and calculating as they scoured the area like wolves on the hunt. I nearly drew my breath, but Lucy caught my arm, her eyes wide, both terrified and resolute. That's it. They're not just after me, she murmured, conviction flaring in her gaze. They're targeting anyone who knows the truth. Marissa's resolve hardened. We need to generate a distraction. If we can draw them away before she could finish. A rusted metal door swung open on the far side of the alley, and a figure stepped out, silhouetted against the dim light. My heart plummeted. Had we been cornered? Was this a trap? Wait, I called, rising slightly from my hiding spot. The figure stepped closer, revealing something that took my breath away. It was Julia, the owner of the cafe, her brow creased in concern as she darted her gaze between us and the hunting men. Here. Quick. She motioned, her voice hushed but urgent. The once innocuous sanctuary had transformed into a source of heaven. This way, Ryan wasted no time, seizing Luce's hand and pulling her along. I followed, the glimmer of hope igniting in the pit of my stomach as we ran toward her. Heartbeats drummed in tandem as we ducked back into the cafe just as the men turned their attention toward the other end of the alley. Go, go, Julia urged. Downstairs quickly, we streamed into the cafe's basement where the air was stale but shielded us from the danger lurking outside. Julia shoved the door shut, pressing against it with strained urgency, cutting off the light and leaving us consumed by darkness. What the hell is happening? Ryan gasped, scrambling to catch his breath as tension tightened the very air we breathed. Lucy, tell me about the garden, Marissa insisted, her voice unyielding. Think. What did your father leave you there? Lucy's eyes flickered, an internal struggle played out on her face. I don't know. He always said it was a safe place, a hiding spot. I never understood why. You need to remember. Marissa's voice was firm, the no-nonsense tone slicing through the chaos. As moment stretched, punctured by anxious breaths, suddenly, we heard voices outside the door. They can't have gone far, one of the men growled, frustration rippling in his tone that only amplified the gnawing fear within me. We need to search every inch, another replied. They didn't hide this well enough. An idea struck me, illuminating my mind like a flickering bulb casting desperate shadows. Julia. Do you have any supplies? Anything we could use to make a signal or distraction? Of course, she replied swiftly, moving away into the dark corners of the basement. Just a moment, amid the clamor of voices beyond the door, Lucy suddenly burst forth, what if the garden's not just physical? What if it was also a metaphor? Marissa turned to her, brows furrowing. What do you mean? I remember him talking about nurturing roots, things he wanted to protect, Lucy said, her voice filled with a sudden spark of clarity. Maybe he meant something more than just an actual place. What if the truth is hidden in what he built, a foundation, like a company or a cause? Ryan leaned closer, the harshness of the situation lifting with the prospect. What did he care about most? Family, friendships. Before Lucy could respond, Julia returned with a few tools and supplies, her determination matching our own growing resolve. This is what I have. It's not much, but we can create something to divert them. Every second added layers of urgency as we pieced together our plan. But then, a chilling sound reverberated from behind the door. Someone had become suspicious. Check the basement. One of the men yelled. The door rattled as they slammed against it, a heavy thud echoing through the cramped confines. Heart racing, I turned to Lucy, wanting to capture this fleeting moment of connection. Whatever happens, we'll face it together, I vowed, determination hardening within me. Then came a deafening crash as the door finally gave way. I barely had time to react as the figures erupted into the room, darkness spilling in like ink. The chaos of limbs and shouts melted into one crescendo of dread, and just as everything threatened to spiral out of control, a flicker of light emitted from Julia's hand. In one swift moment, she pressed a button on a small device that illuminated our agonizingly chaotic reality. Run! She shouted, the faint glow igniting the raw energy around us. The moment stretched longer than I could bear, and just as I felt the rush of our escape plan surge forward, the glint of a familiar face caught my eye, a face I had thought we were leaving behind, and there, standing just beyond the threshold, was Luce's father, the man who looked like him, holding the very same ledger that could unravel our fates. Lucy, he called, his voice laced with urgency and something I couldn't quite place. Regret, perhaps? We need to talk. Everything shattered mid-escape, and beneath the harsh buzz of uncertainty, I felt the weight of our secrets pulling us back into their abyss. I had thought the truth would set us free, but now, it felt like it was spiraling deeper into a darkness of its own creation. Everything exploded into chaos. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light as he stood there. The man couldn't be Luce's father, could he? The one who had left so many fractured pieces in the wake of his departure? But the unmistakable lines of familiarity crossed his features, visible even against the shadows that quaked around us. Lucy, he called again, urgency lacing his voice. We need to talk. It's not what you think. My heart pounded like war drums, and I instinctively moved to shield Lucy behind me. But she stepped forward, disbelief flashing in her blue eyes. You left me. You left us all. Now you just waltz back in like you own the place. Her voice trembled, splintered by emotion. I could see the tide of raw feelings crashing against her carefully constructed walls, the pain, the anger, the longing for answers. Please, just listen. He pleaded, eyes darting around the room, awareness of our precarious situation trickling in. It's not safe here. They're coming for you, and I can explain everything. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought it was for the best. My head swam with the implications of his words, the tension thickening in the air all around us. The thuds from the men outside grew louder, pounding like a relentless heartbeat. I had always believed knowledge was power, but here it felt perilous, hanging dangerously close to fragility. Explain. You think I want to hear from you? Lucy countered, voice fierce yet fragile, rage almost palpable. But even I could see the dread flickering in her eyes, battling against the shadows of the past she had fought so hard to escape. Lucy, please. He pressed, desperation seeping through every word. Your father left behind more than just debts, he hid vital information in that ledger. I didn't know they'd come after you, but they're not just looking for anything, this is about something bigger. His eyes raked over us, assessing the tangled emotions simmering within the room. I could feel tension winding tighter, the air growing scarce and thick with unspoken truths. What do you mean? I asked, my voice shaky but holding steady in the storm of uncertainty, needing the clarity amid chaos. What's at stake? He inhaled deeply, almost as if summoning courage. It's not just about debts, your father was part of something much darker. And I think we can still. Suddenly, a racketing crash erupted from just outside the basement door, and I could hear one of the men bark orders through the panic. We have to hurry. They're right behind us, please, I urged, glancing down at Lucy, who looked as if she were viewing a storm gather on the horizon, uncertainty swirling within her chest. We need to decide now. Do you trust him, Lucy? Do you trust what he says? Her heart raced visibly. I could see it in the deep wells of her eyes, the conflict embroiling her spirit. Would she risk stepping toward a history fraught with heartache? Would she chase after the truth despite the looming shadows? Before Lucy could respond, another deafening crash shattered my thoughts. The door was rammed again, sending a quaking shuddering through the old building. Every instinct screamed at me to protect her, to drive her away from the source of chaos that once had been the home of her forgotten childhood. And then, like a phoenix from the ashes, Lucy spoke up, voice steadier than I had anticipated. I want the truth, but I will not be swept back into your world without my choice. You have to know that. Her father's face fell, the small flicker of hope snuffed out in an instant. Lucy, you don't understand. No. She interrupted, stepping forward, lips pressed together as the tempest of emotion built in her voice. You don't get to dictate what I should know. I want to know everything, but am not asking for your permission. You left me once, and I built my life in those shadows. Don't think for a moment I won't move my own way now. The rhythm of her heart echoed resilience, lifting with every word. In that moment, she shifted from doubt into determination. I could only stand there, hovering on the edge between admiration and fear for what would come. Next, me love for her clashing with my desperate need to protect her from this resurrected past. You think I can just leave my life behind? That's not who I am anymore. I've fought too hard for the woman I've become. You can't take that away. As she stood tall against the tempest, my heart soared and crumbled all at once. She was no longer that lost girl who had looked back over her shoulder at shadows that haunted her. She was face to face with danger, with a truth she was grabbing hold of, whether or not it was ready to embrace her. I lunged forward, hand gripping hers, sealing our fate together. We face this together. Whatever comes next, we face it. We can find our way back. But before the words could usher a promise, the door creaked, broken wood splintering under the weight of forceful entry, silhouettes cast a long shadow over our hope, and fear knotted my stomach. The men emerged, fury in their eyes, focused and unyielding, a huddle of darkness blotting out all light. I squeezed Lucy's hand tighter, ready to thrust us both into the unknown. And without another thought, she nodded, a shared understanding flickering between us, united against the danger closing in. But just as the men approached, a loud explosion erupted from behind us, sending debris flying and casting an array of lights like the stars breaking through an invisible veil. The moment stretched as we turned together. It was Julia, her ferocity clashing with the might of her act, throwing caution to the winds. A manifestation of defiance. "We don't have to allow this," she shouted amid the chaos, eyes aflame with determination. "You can run, or you can fight." The dark figures paused momentarily. A moment's hesitation spiraled between us, thick with the gravity of our choices. Lucy took a breath, and we all shuddered in anticipation as her resolve surged like a tidal wave. "I choose to know the truth." And in that final moment of apprehension, I could see everything come together, the swirling edges of chaos fueling the spark of resilience as we all forged forward into that night of disarray. Together, we would uncover the truth and perhaps discover the light hidden in the shadows, a power within pain that could rewrite fear into something beautiful. Our truth, as twisted and tangled as it may have been, breathed life anew. I felt the threads of destiny connecting, stitching together the frayed fabric of our realities into something we could face together. And beyond the confrontation, past the darkness, we would find our way back into the light, marking history with our resilience, leaving old scars behind together, ready to reclaim our tomorrows. And as we dove into the unknown, back to the light that awaited us, I whispered softly to Lucy, "In this journey of rediscovery, we'll rise from ashes into something unstoppable. I promise you that." There was no turning back now. We were bound by our shared truths, ready to face whatever awaited us on the other side of the storm. The journey ahead shimmered with hope and possibility, the kind born from enduring love not just for each other, but for the very essence of reclaiming our lives. For in that trembling moment, I realized that no matter the depths of despair, the light of truth always has a way of emerging from the darkest corners of our hearts, and sometimes, the hardest battles lead us to the places we're meant to be. "Together," I reminded her, squeezing her hand tightly. "Together," she confirmed, voice steady. In the end, that was our truth, a bond forged under the weight of murky pasts, but ignited by a future bursting with possibilities, soaring toward a radiant horizon ready to reclaim every moment from shadows cast behind.